TheWhoThatDaily.com. That's right, TheWhoThatDaily.com. Your one-stop shop for everything New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, even the top flight boxing news. So if you're a Who That and you're looking for a place to stay up on your team, TheWhoThatDaily.com is your site. TheWhoThatDaily.com for the sport Who That in all of us.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tiger Talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tiger Talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers, go Tigers.
Tiger Talk.
Go Tigers, go Tigers.
You're now listening to Tough Tiger Talk with Big Q and the guys on the Pro Media Network.
What's up, fam? What's going on? Welcome to another installment of Tough Tiger Talk. Tuesdays, we're in the building. Much love to the Tiger Nation, man, as we come with all the latest news and notes on your LSU football fighting Tigers. We're in this piece, man. I'm Big Q chiming in on this episode of Tough Tiger Talk on Tuesday. My co-host Uncle Mozzy is in the building as well. Uncle Mozzy, how you doing, brother?
Whoa, what's up with it? What's up?
All right, doing good. Everything's shaking well, man. Time for another episode of Tough Tiger Talk. We got several news, notes, and items we're going to go over with the family members today on this episode of Tough Tiger Talk on Tuesday, man. Of course, this one's labeled Tiger wide receiver touted as a breakout star in 2021, and they're talking about Mr. Kayshon Boutte. So with that being said, man, we're going to get right into this thing. And Uncle Mozzy, this really doesn't kind of strike us as a surprise right here, because he had some pretty big games last year. One in particular when he had that 13 catch performance, man, that really set everything on blaze. I'll let you know this guy could be something real deal coming for LSU's offense. And let's get into this article from LSU Tiger Wire. Mr. Patrick Kahn, he says, over the last several seasons, LSU Tigers have been rich at the wide receiver position. This past NFL draft, the team saw Jamar Chase selected in the top 10 to join former teammate Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. Since 2017, the Tigers have produced 7 wide receivers to be selected. Last year's Minnesota Vikings selected Justin Jefferson, and it paid off immediately. He was named to the Pro Bowl and second-team All-Pro for his 1,400-yard campaign. He was spectacular for the Vikings, by the way. Given the amount of talent leaving for the pro level, the team has to replace that production. There is no Chase this year, or even Terrence Marshall Jr., who went to the Carolina Panthers in the second round. So which wideout will step up to challenge in 2021 to help lead the Tigers offense? Now, according to ESPN's Alex Scarborough, he said the breakout star candidate is Mr. Kayshon Boutte. As you can see, he's quoted here as saying, it's understandable if you've missed Kayshon Boutte's his late arrival last season. LSU was struggling to get to 500 at that time. The former 4-star prospect really started to show what he was capable of. Without Chase and Marshall, Boutte emerged as the Tigers' go-to playmaker on offense, a true burner and downfield threat. If he can do even half as well as he did in the final 3 games last season, when he had a combined 527 yards and 4 touchdowns against Alabama, Florida, and Ole Miss, then he could find himself in the conversation for the top receiver in college football, baby. So with that being said, remember that fantastic effort, 14 receptions, 308 yards, and 3 touchdowns. That's a hell of a day for Mr. Kayshon Boutte. So let's talk about him. LSU wide receiver touted as the breakout star for 2021. Uncle Mozzy, thoughts on this?
Well, I definitely think he could come in and make an impact. They got to compare it to Stephon Diggs. You know how I feel about Stephon. That's just, best receiver in the NFL last 3 years, arguably. But they have him listed as a dynamic, versatile weapon in the passing game with a limited frame, but compensates with athleticism and playmaking ability. So this is going to be one of those situations where you got an undersized guy coming in, and this undersized guy is going to really overachieve because it's what he's got between his ears that's going to catapult him to the next level. And I think that's what they're looking at. They're looking at his mental toughness, and they're looking at his athletic ability as well. And although he may be undersized, I think he'll make up more than enough with his athletic ability if he lives up to all the hype. That remains to be seen. But I mean, traditionally, as you stated, to your point, the last 5 years, 6 years, LSU has been really, really good at wide receiver, if not exceptional at wide receiver at times. You know, look at Jamal Chase and a couple other guys that we had, and the list goes on and on. Segue into what we were talking about later on. We got a potential 5-star recruit coming, in-state recruit, next door neighbor recruit coming in at the receiver position next year. So, I mean, our receivers and our linebackers and our secondary, our running backs, everybody's stepping up to the plate, and everybody's doing really, really well. I'm really excited for it, but where our deficiency lies at, where it's lied at since the departure of Mr. Burrow. And unfortunately, in this conference, that's one of the main components you need. I deflect.
Well, anyway, and of course, even though I know you did your research to kind of clean that up about what you thought originally about Max Johnson, so you know his true age now. And of course, we talked about the fact that does change your overall opinion about him. You no longer could use insure jokes and call him grandpa anymore, being that you did the proper research. So with that being said, let's segue to that article, Uncle Mozzy. 5-star wide receiver Evan Stewart planning LSU official visit. This is a pretty good one here. As the 2022 Frisco, Texas Liberty wide receiver, Evan Stewart is a top target for LSU, which touted him unofficially to end the June recruiting period, and he will host him for an official visit in the fall. Well, he was told by 247 Sports national recruiting analyst Mr. Doan at the opening finals. He says, I should be officially, and this is what he's saying, young Mr. Stewart, I should be officially visiting Alabama and LSU, probably taking another one because I will have one left. So I will have to decide on that one, Stewart told 24/7 Sports at the opening. And the LSU is he says LSU is kind of like the same thing. They're both real business there. There's really not much difference between Alabama and LSU. It's a big difference. Florida and Texas hosted him for an official visit last month, while Texas A&M is the other school in contention for the last official visit, but he's weighing whether he's actually wants to be an Aggie before planning a visit, and he and his family are weighing out their options in the recruitment process. So, I mean, this is one of the top guys right here, Uncle Mozzy, coming into this thing. This could be a big get for him. 5-star wide receiver Evan Stewart looking at LSU. What's our real potential of landing this kid?
Well, I mean, it's not like he wants to go to a really big market. And when you look at some of the other candidates on the list, I think they're more excited about A&M than anything. In-state school, he's an in-state kid. They want to retain him. So they're going to be rolling out the red carpet. And I think that will probably be the only issue that we have. Outside of that, Alabama does attract a lot of them. So does LSU. So when we look at it and go up and down the list, LSU, Alabama, A&M, it's kind of a coin flip, I would say, between Alabama and LSU, because A&M is where he wants to reside at. Let's stay in the state of Texas and play him. I don't know if we can lure him over, but I mean, winning culture changes everything. So I think it'll more than likely come down to whoever's touted has the best record and the best team at the time. Because at the end of the day, although he may love and his parents may love Texas A&M, the end game is the NFL. So you got to ask yourself, how can I catapult myself to the NFL?
Next level.
Right, the next level. I can remember. I don't know if you remember the kid from Car, Speedy Claxton. Speedy came from a car, went over to A&M. I never heard from him again. He was undersized, but very, very talented. Multiple awards in high school football here in Louisiana. He went out to A&M and died. I've never known a receiver to go to A&M. So if we're looking at schools that produce, at least the last 5 years, produce top-tier receivers, I got to go with Alabama and LSU as my number one and number two. Then from that, I guess whoever is touted, that I could walk on Alabama, of course, you 40 people deep, all 5-star recruits. Although he is a 5-star recruit, he'll be one of many. And seniority will definitely take place. So if you got a junior or senior 5-star recruit, you come in as a freshman, chances are you won't be able to start, i.e. Alvin Kamara. So you know how that goes.
Yep.
So it just remains to be seen. I think LSU would be a good look for him, especially if he's looking to go to the next level as a wide receiver. Because, again, if anybody wants to chime in, I cannot remember an A&M receiver the last decade that's been impactful in the NFL or that went to the NFL and made any kind of wave.
Well, I think one of the things, man, that people have to remember is that LSU is a team, man, that has a lot. And of course, like you said yourself, and you masterfully said it, is that it's up to the Tigers. We have to win.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, the last wide receiver I can throw at you from Texas A&M was Mike Evans from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just to let you know. So I
But
guess
2000 and 1991, 1890. We can go further back. Mike Evans is he still in the league?
Mike Evans is one of the best wide receivers in the pros. Yeah, he was drafted. What was it? Not too long ago, by the way. I mean, I can probably give you his information. I mean, he was picked up into the league. He's 27 years old. He was drafted in what was it?
It's been longer than 5 years, is what I'm telling you. So they haven't produced top tier talent in a wide receiver spot in close to a decade. I'm sure it's been at least 7-8 years, right? No.
Well, I would have to do some more information on that, but I mean, like I said, the best one I could throw at you right now, he might be the lone guy in what you're saying. He could be the exception to the rule of what you're saying. But I think Mike Evans is definitely a guy that kind of is that lone exception.
Here's the thing: I'll raise your one, and I'll see you
8 years.
10.
He's been in there 8 years.
Okay, 8 years. So I'll raise your one, Mike Evans, 8 years ago to the 10, 11, 12 divvied up between LSU and Alabama the last 5 years. You see how that works? So if I'm a receiver, I'm like, I got to look at the history here. 8 years ago, and then to go even further back than that, how long was it from him that they had a top tier receiver? You see?
Right. Well, I have to do some research on that. Go back NFL receivers that from Texas that actually made it there. But one that just that comes off mind and my eye is Mike Evans. But that, like I said, he's been in the league for 8 years now. So I don't know. I would have to kind of do some research on that. But I get your point, though.
Yeah. So he's no Mike Evans is no Julio Jones.
All right, so let's move on. This is the next article right here we're going to go with. Where LSU Tigers, SEC teams land in the FBS top 130 rankings for 2021 as we try to get an idea of where the Tigers rank according to what some of the other people are saying. This one's coming from the Tiger Wire. Patrick Kahn. Annual top 130 rankings are out for Athlon Sports. So where do you think LSU Tigers rank among the nation's best? According to Athlon Sports, put together their top 130 rankings, breaking down every team in FBS. They also broke down the strengths and concerns on offense and defense for every team, including the LSU Tigers. And here is the breakdown for LSU just for the Tiger Nations to know. Now, of course, offensive strength, they said whether it's Brennan or Max Johnson under center, LSU should feel confident in his quarterback play. The Tigers should improve up front with all 5 starters returning along with the offensive line. Talent isn't an issue at receiver, and Keyshawn Butte is poised for an All-American caliber season. Now, we did lose Dare Rosenthal out of the mix to be replaced by Cam Wire, so they're not returning everybody, per se, some of the starters, but Rosenthal entering the transfer portal. We covered that last week. LSU seems to be in good position on the offensive side of the ball at the quarterback with both Brennan and Johnson. What remains to be seen is which signal caller will stand tall when they travel to Los Angeles, California to kick off the season. This is the concern. The Tigers averaged just under 8 yards per play in 2019, but regressed to 5.5 last year. Can a new play caller, Jake Peets, get this group back to its 19 level? The ground game needs more punch after averaging 3.3 yards per carry last fall. The offense wasn't anywhere near the level they were in 2019. It wasn't just losing the passing game coordinator, Mr. Joe Brady, and quarterback Joe Burrow that set them back, but no Clyde Edwards-Helaire was just as damaging to the offense. The running game needs to get rolling in the upcoming season. Now, Uncle Mozzy, let's look at the strengths and then the weaknesses or the concerns before we move to the defensive side of the ball. What do you think about their take about the offensive strength with the Miles Brennan and Max Johnson saying that we should feel pretty good or confident having those two guys there. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, Miles Brennan he still hasn't lived up to his expectations. So I guess we gotta go, next man up, and see how that goes. What I will say is that if Miles Brennan is, for whatever reason, the starter, Max Johnson will definitely smell blood and water. So he'll definitely have to step his gameplay up, and I wouldn't see him playing no more than a quarter or two at the very beginning before Max Johnson were to come in. And I think that Max Johnson, if the last two games of last season showed us anything, it showed us that he is a gunslinger, and we would have a fairly decent chance of winning a couple games. Is he Joe Burrow? No, I don't think he needs to be Joe Burrow, because I think that I don't necessarily think that our competition, mainly Alabama, Auburn, the people in the SEC West, I don't really see them having the impactful roster as they had last year. So I think things would be a lot more diverse. I think that with Max Johnson, I think he's hungry. I think that he will take Brennan's spot. And if the defense steps up and we can start holding some of these guys, 2-3 touchdowns a game, I think offensively we'll be good to go. I don't think we'll have these astronomical numbers, but I think we'll be good for 24 to 35 a game, respectively. Out of conference, in conference, I think we'll be good for 21 to 24 a game. And I think that'll be good enough to get it done if the defense steps up.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it too, Uncle Mozzy, is that I have a lot of confidence in the defense. We'll get to that in just a second, but the second part of this, the concerns, is I'm a big a guy that's promoter of Max Johnson. I think Max Johnson should be the quarterback. He showed me some stuff the last few games of the season, which kind of the offense got on par to get back to 500 behind some really spectacular play by him scrambling around, making plays with his feet, throwing the ball on the run. He had a certain confidence and a certain swag, and he also had the offense operating with a vibe, with an energy, versus what Miles Brennan was doing. He was dead out there. He might have had the strong arm and the ability to sling the ball down the field, but as far as the leadership capabilities and the it factor, this kid doesn't have it, man. He just screams backup quarterback to me for whatever reason. But Max Johnson is a guy we're looking for with the it factor, a bit of the electric, that galvanized the offense to a degree. And you got to believe going into the season that he's a forerunner over Miles Brennan, when a lot of people were calling for the removal of Miles Brennan from the quarterback position because he was so heavy. So he was so goddamn zombie-esque back there. But anyway, the big part of it outside, I think Max Johnson will be fine under center. The other portion of the offensive concern was the rushing attack, averaging 3.3 yards per carry. Uncle Mozzy, that's pretty bad. Can we get back on tap with the rushing attack? Guys like TD Price, guys like John Emery Jr., could these guys factor in where we have that offensive impact that we had in years past?
I'm sorry, the mic was muted. I'm sorry. Go ahead and say it again. You broke up
the rushing attack LSU had going into this into last year. They averaged 3.3 yards per carry. That's pretty sorry by LSU's lofty standards, by their rushing attack standards.
Oh, but that'll change. That'll definitely change. Go ahead.
Well, who leads that group? Is it John Emery Jr. to you or TD Price? Who do you like?
No, it's definitely Emery. Emery's an absolute beast. The issue that we had last season, and we've talked about it before, our offensive line was young. I know you don't like everybody played under the same. Yeah, but okay, we had a young offensive line coming in during COVID. They had a lot of the camps and a lot of the spring training they missed. So they had to go into the season blind and got blindsided. I'm surprised, they held up as long as they did without getting anybody hurt. But that won't be the case this season because everybody's returning. We're adding a piece or two. Emery's had another year under his belt. We got new blood coming in offensively. We got a new guy under center potentially, and I think all of those things play a part. So, do I think that'll compensate for an additional 2 yards a carry? Absolutely. I think if we go from 3.2, 3.3 to 5.5, 6, nobody will complain.
No, I almost certainly wouldn't. If we can get some of that, that means we creating balance where it needs to be created.
Yep.
Being able to run the ball and throw the ball, and having, of course, we talked about Jake Peets and bringing some of Joe Brady's system back to Death Valley is also a strong proponent. Why people are really feeling the electric of LSU's offense coming back. I'm really excited to see what that looks like with Max Johnson over the helm and John Emery and the rest of those guys. Let's go over to the defensive side of the ball here. As he categorizes the defensive strengths of LSU, the talent is in place for the defense to rank amongst the best in the SEC, hell, in the country, in my opinion. The cornerback duo of Derek Stingley Jr. and Eli Ricks is arguably the number one tandem in college football. A deep rotation returns up front. No shocking developments here for the Bayou Bengals with Derek Stingley, Eli Ricks ready to lock down outside. Once again, LSU has two of the better cornerbacks in the country. If Stingley plays the way he did as a freshman, that will only enhance the level of play for the Tigers defense. When we talk about Derek Stingley Jr., and rightfully so, we also talk about guys like Eli Ricks, and rightfully so, but we also have some really good people like Cordell Flott and McGuthern and a few other guys returning the safety play, Harris and Jay Ward and a few other guys back there. Really excited about the secondary and the defense. All right, let's go on and see what the concern is. The Tigers allowed 7.3 yards per play and almost 35 points per game last season. Is new coordinator Durante Jones capable of fixing all of the issues in 1 year? Linebacker depth is a small concern, but Clemson transfer Mike Jones was a key addition to the mix. Mike Jones, LSU defense, has lost one of their key contributors in Jabril Cox to the NFL. Now Mike Jones comes in from Clemson, helps solidify the unit. The linebacker core will be one of the keys to watch week in and week out, not to mention Mike Jones comes there, but you got also Navonta Q Strong that's there as well. The key with Mika Bakersfield, Damone Clark is there, Jared Small is there. They got quite a interesting linebacker core. But Uncle Mozzy, let's look at the rest of this and look at you heard what he says about defensive strengths, like in Derek Stingley Jr. and Eli Ricks. What do you think about the defensive strength? He talked about the secondary, not mentioning it up front with all the talent Coach O has. You know that's his strong suit. We talk about guys like Ali Gay. You got Pharrell there. You got Logan there. You got Andrew Anthony there. I mean, you got so much talent there. Mason Smith, that's a big name to watch as well. What do you think about the comments about the defense for LSU?
Well, here's the
strength-wise.
Well, here's the thing about it, right? The reason that they focus so much on the secondary, which is led by Stingley, obviously, but our secondary can play lockdown man coverage on any FBS Division I team. What that means is you don't have to worry about playing zone or staying home or anything like that. You can dial up all sorts of blitzes because everybody will be covered down the field. So there's not going to be a scenario unless we come up against an unbelievable running back and an unbelievable line. They have, they have their own schemes. I don't see a scenario with the secondary we have where our front four and our linebackers can't wreak havoc in that backfield. It's almost impossible because every time you get back to pass, you're passing into a secondary of all 6'1", 4'2" people. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's almost okay. So I wouldn't want to be the quarterback facing that, which means you're gonna have to hand the ball off. Handing the ball off against that down seven, that's an impossibility. That's what that is. So not only that, but if you drop back in the coverage, when you see nobody's open, you're gonna have to dink and dunk your way out of it. And that's just not going to be effective enough to move the ball down the field. Not in this conference. Now, when you come up, obviously, against the Alabamas and the Auburns and the Floridas, when, things get a little bit more tight, those games, you may have something to worry about because they have exceptional running backs. They have exceptional depth at receiving. Their receiving core would line up or match up almost dead even with our secondary. So it would come down to that point, it would just be about slight mental mistakes. Maybe who's tired in the fourth quarter or who's not tired, just things of that nature. But all said and done, I wouldn't want to pass into that secondary. And because of that, I think that front seven will just wreak havoc on anything in the backfield, including the quarterback.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that, Uncle Mozzy, because there's no way I see LSU giving up 7.3 yards per play this upcoming season Well, all of the talent, the secondary, Stingley Jr. and Eli Ricks gathering more experience and playing together, very loaded secondary. And then up front, a lot of guys in the defensive line. I mentioned Mason Smith and a few other guys there. And, of course, the strength of the linebacking core coming back. Of course, you talk about a Jabril Cox and guys like that. Those are talented players. But, man, I'm really big on Navon Q Strong, Mike Jones, and a few other guys. I think LSU, Coach O did a fantastic job of bringing in talent to the defense to kind of excite the defense and make sure the front seven is playing on fire. But the reality also is the fact that Durante Jones, who Coach O brought in to revamp the defense, is going to bring in that real physical, rough style of LSU defense that we're accustomed to seeing. So I'm really big on Durante Jones coming here, being the defensive coordinator. I just like all of the great parts that Coach O did offensively speaking, bringing Jake Peets and the talent of Joe Burrow, his former, prospects, or I guess you could say, or underlings. I don't want to say underlings, but his understudies, that's a better term, coming here, revamping or revitalizing what Joe Burrow did in the 2019 season when we just ran rap shy over college. But it's no way that I see LSU giving up 7.3 yards per play and almost 35 point per game like they did last year under this fast and physical defense. So that's a big part of it. But anyway, let's move on to the final article here of the show. And hold on, let me see if I can get it pulled up. But yeah, Uncle Mozzy, I definitely agree with you, my friend, on that big time. We're going to see a lot of we're going to see a lot of friendly, fun stuff happening with LSU on both the offense and defensive side of the ball. So let's keep a lookout on that. And of course, with that being said, and with all that's going on, the question got to be then presented to the Tiger family members is for what ifs that could turn LSU football into a title contender in 2020. This is also coming directly from this is from Yahoo Sports, posting this from LSU Wire, as we'll go over this article. And they're saying, for what ifs, what will it take? Well, we know the expectation level for LSU's, football program for the upcoming season. After a perfect campaign in 2019, the Bayou Bengals didn't have a great follow-up season. They came into the year as a number 6 ranked team in the country, and that lasted all of 1 week after Mike Leach's air raid picked apart the defense. They fell to number 20. The Tigers finished with a 5-5 mark. They played 3 ranked opponents, going 1-2 in those games. They knocked the Florida Gators out of playoff contention, which I was really proud of that, with a 37-34 victory ahead of the shootout with Ole Miss. With the changes made over the offseason, can the Tigers return to form and challenge for the SEC championship? Good question. According to ESPN's Bill Connolly, there are 4 what ifs the Tigers need in order to become a title contender. According to BT MGM, LSU has the 8th best odds at winning the college football playoffs for 2021. So it all starts with the quarterback position. If small sample Miles Brennan is large sample Miles Brennan. Last season, Brennan stepped up to take the place of a departing Heisman Trophy winner Joe Burrow in 3 games as the quarterback for Ed Orgeron's team. Brennan completed 60.3% of his passes for 1,112 yards with 11 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. If you could explorate those numbers across a full 12-game slate, then you're looking at highly productive season from him. At that rate, Brennan would throw for 4,448 yards with 44 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. One would think that any Tiger fan and any coaching staff would take that level of production at the quarterback position. Of course, this means they're banking on Brennan to beat out Max Johnson for the starting 9, which I don't know about that. So, I mean, we'll keep going on and moving on to it. The next change is, of course, at the defensive coordinator. And we like, what they did there. If the new defensive coordinator hire is infinitely more successful, which he will be, Bo Pelini experiment, boy, he was never mentioned that name around me again, was a fail one after losing Dave Aranda to Baylor. Former NFL assistant Durante Jones comes to Baton Rouge looking to right the ship for the defense with so many returning starters to the defense. Jones has the talent ready to make a difference. The question is, can he get back to where they were 2 years ago? So what if ESPN says if Bo Pelini lone year at DC LSU failed to 69th in the defensive SP plus, and while they were bad breaks for injury, prospective communication errors, and questionable tactics doomed the D, Orgeron replaced Pelini with Durante Jones, and this is This is a big upgrade. Bo Pelini was disastrous. It was just awful. Next, an impact freshman steps up. If the defensive front finds some push, LSU Tigers defense is no stranger to applying pressure to opposing quarterbacks at the college and NFL levels. In 21, the defense needs to do more of that to help out the chances at the college football playoffs in the upcoming season. Defensive end Ali Gay finished with 9.5 tackles for a loss, but only 2 sacks in the pandemic-shortened 2020 campaign. The leading sack artist played on the opposite end of Gay. Andre Anthony finished with 5.5 sacks on the season. Anthony's primary backup is B.J. Ojulari, who was second with 4 himself. Could the defense get help from a blue-chip freshman in Mason Smith? Absolutely is my call there. And then finally, a lockdown cornerback returns to form. In 2019, Stingley Jr. is back. Coming out of the high school in 2019 recruiting class, there wasn't a higher touted cornerback than Derek Stingley Jr. He finished his freshman campaign on a national championship team, playing in all 15 games. Stingley finished with 6 interceptions, 15 passes defense, 1 fumble recovery. When it came to throwing the ball, you had to be careful throwing the way of number 24. Last season, it was a completely different story. In 7 games played, he forced 1 fumble, recovered 1. He his passes defended dropped to just 5, and Stingley didn't intercept a single pass. We do know that his health was a major reason for the Tigers to roar in 2021. The number 1 cornerback from the 2019 class needs to return to his freshman form. So as you can see, Uncle Mozzy, give you a chance to kind of look into it. First and foremost, that Sam Miles Brennan has to step up and do some otherworldly stuff. Next one is the defensive coordinator, Mr. Durante Jones. It's definitely going to be an upgrade over Bo Pelini, in my opinion. And, of course, we have a lot more talent on that defense as well. And somebody has to step up. Mason Smith's a big guy that'll help out with the rest of the talent that LSU has up front. Derek Stingley, Eli Ricks, and the rest of the secondary will come alive as well. What do you think about the call made right here from Yahoo Sports article on 4 what ifs LSU needs to happen for them to be a title contender in 2021?
I mean, I think they hit the nail on the head with it, to be honest. From the defensive side, from the quarterback play to the run game, I think they hit the nail on the head. If they can, do that, and you're still going to need a certain amount of luck, because I mean, one thing they're not factoring in are injuries or COVID or those things. But
right.
I mean, barring those things, I think that we should be all right. And I think that it's also going to be imperative, especially from these trainers that we have over at LSU and Coach Ogeron, to stress to these players that we're up against 2 fights. We're up against the external fights of COVID, and those things still going on. Obviously, not as it was last year, but the risk is still there. So, they need to be drilling into these kids as a 5th what if. Make sure you take care of your bodies, because it can be as simple as something. You play in Alabama, their quarterback, their receiver, their running back, they're not taking care of their bodies. They can't play. That's your opportunity. You never know when it's going to come. But that is a new factor, and you've got to pay attention to that. And I think that Coach O and those trainers, they need to have maybe a class or a seminar or something stressing the importance of that, and stressing that could be an advantage to you down the road if somebody else isn't following the same protocols.
Well said. Health is a big part of the championship process. And, of course, with the restriction on the stadiums, a lot of people you start to see life start to look similar again, and we'll start seeing college football stadiums full. But also the health is definitely a major part of this ensemble. LSU is pretty deep at most of its, if not all, the positions that I've seen covering LSU in the depth chart. If you look all over the defense and also all over the offense, they are loaded in a lot of positions, man. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with it. But I'm also really excited about the changes that happen with the offensive coordinators as well, as we bring in that 4-3 scheme in here with defensive coordinator Durante Jones. But like I said, I really feel good about LSU this year. And I think once again, we'll be one of those teams that people look past moving forward, just like they did in our championship year. Who's seen us coming that year? None of them seen us coming. A lot of people was discarding LSU, and I think they'll make that very dangerous era this year as well. Anytime you see them talking about bringing vestiges of Joe Brady's system back with some of his disciples who ran it up under him, and you have them operating principles there, the a new addition of the defensive coordinator and all of the talent that Coach O brung to help out the defense, man, it's going to be tough, man, just to stop LSU this year. Getting back to running the ball and throwing that ball down the field, and fast defense, climbing and knocking people out of here, stopping the run, one-dimensionalizing squads. And then, of course, you look at the schedule on Mozzy. The schedule is very favorable for the Fighting Tigers this year as well. So I have nothing but big hopes for this upcoming season for LSU football. And a lot of these articles talk about what LSU needs to do it. And I don't think it's very far off to think that they can do it as well. And I think it's a return back to what we know they can really be. It's like one of the top teams in college football.
Yep.
So with that being said, man, we're going to chime out on that. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us for Tough Tiger Talks. Big ups to Shedrick, Brother Damien, True Louisiana, my see you fam. Appreciate y'all for chiming in on the show. Much love to the family members. And of course, those that's listening on the replay, when they hit replay, please feel free to chime in on your thoughts on, the topics that we covered on the show. Let us know how you guys feel about some of the topics we covered on the show. Do you think LSU can be a contender? What fears do you have? You think that might stop LSU or kind of hinder them a bit? Are you a little nervous about the running game? Are you a little nervous about them stopping the run? Do you think they'll allow over 35 or 35 points per contest last year? Do they allow 7.3 yards per yard thrown against them against the defense? Do you guys, what are you nervous about? But are those minuses severely less than the pluses, and you think LSU returns to one of the elite in college? Let us know in the comment section. So I'd like to thank all the family members for joining us on this episode of Tough Tiger Talk. As always, Uncle Mozzy, a treasure trove of information. And remember, family, this will be our last show doing Tough Tiger Talk on Tuesdays. We'll be moving it to its regular spot of Saturdays at noon. So please mark that in your calendar. And when we do go, you get the notification. Please lock it in so you can join us as we'll taking calls on Saturdays on Tough Tiger Talk. So with that being said, I'm going to chop out on that. Please feel free to subscribe. If you aren't a subscriber, hit the like button and feel free to share the show on social media and places where other LSU Tough Tiger Talk family dwell. Uncle Mozzy, thank you. Fantastic show, my friend. And I'm going to talk to you later. Go Tigers.
Go Tiger.
TheWhoThatDaily.com. That's right, TheWhoThatDaily.com. Your one-stop shop for everything New Orleans Saints, New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, even the top flight boxing news. So if you're a Who That and you're looking for a place to stay up on your team, TheWhoThatDaily.com is your site. TheWhoThatDaily.com for the sport Who That in all of us.